Yeah, so thank you very much for the opportunity and the time you take to listen to my work, to the work of a whole team, a group of people. And as you know, this is the result, in fact, of, how shall I say, not postponing, but the inability to release a new version of Synthesis due to many factors which I will not explain. And so finally we are there, and it means that I will present you now the result of 12 years of work. Because the previous version was the so-called Synthesis 2009, 12 years, and we finished.
Hij is een van de grootste homeopaten van de wereld, die de basisboeken geschreven heeft.
Fijn.
Ja.
Alize, I hear you speaking.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
And so the way I would like to speak about the work we did is not just showing the rubrics and the numbers, etc., but basically showing the reasoning of the development, because you can imagine during 12 years, a lot of conversations have taken place, a lot of discussions, a lot of contradictions, to use a popular word of today.
Nou, ik krijg Heinz niet te pakken, helaas.
You're still not muted, Alize.
En dan belt hij mij. Later na het eten of weet ik het wel terug.
Jean-Pierre, can you do it?
I'm looking for it, yeah. Yeah, it is.
So it's okay? You hear me again?
Yeah, it's okay.
And so the presentation that I will give you is, in fact, I will show my screen, is called a balancing act. And I hope to give you an insight in the thinking process, because I would like to make you aware that on and off we are making choices in the development of the repertory. So this is basically the angle that I take to present it all to you. So now I'm going to try and share my screen. And if you can please tell me that you see my screen. You see the screen?
Yeah, but it's not full, not a full screen slide now. It's just with all the, yes, that's better.
Voila. So expanding the repertory, a balancing act. That's the whole idea. And so basically, the whole idea of repertory, and especially of synthesis, is, as the name says, is to synthesize the knowledge that is available. And this means there are more and more provings, there are more and more cures, and even prescription strategies may lead to additions in the repertory. So reflecting what is alive in the homeopathic community. And so it does mean that expansion and bigger repertory is inevitable. But in that process, the main question is, what shall we add and what shall we not add, and how shall we add it? Those who are against expanding the repertory, and there is of course a part in our community, they will say, yeah, if you continue doing this, you will get every remedy in every rubric. But I can tell you that just from a pure mathematical point, this is nonsense, because now we have several thousands of remedies in the repertory, and the average number of remedies in a symptom in Synthesis 2009, the previous version, was 7.6. So we are far away from having every remedy in every rubric. So let's reflect why we should have a remedy in a rubric. The first idea is provings. And then we have two choices, the old provings and the recent provings. What shall we do? What shall we put in the repertory? Well, the old provings, they must be there. They are the remedies we use, and we can complete them. We can even correct information that is in the repertory, or look and check the materia medica. Now, the recent provings, do they have a place? Yes, I do believe, because they respond to recent needs. And in the description of today's provers, we find recently used language and words, they were not used and not included in the old repertories. So I would say that we just add both ideas, old provings and recent provings. That is not a problem. The problem is the over-repertorization. Over-repertorization means that you analyze too much every symptom, every word that the prover has been speaking, and you make 1, 2, 3, 4 rubrics, and you make too many rubrics. You over-repertorize the proving. It's a very difficult topic because there is a wide range of opinions on how to repertorize a proving. And one idea, and I will not go into detail on this topic too much this time, I've lectured about it several times. One idea is to link the rubric in the repertory to the source information, so people can see where the rubric comes from and then decide whether this is a valid entry, a valid link or not. For the old provings, there were one remedy has been proved by several proving coordinators. And so there will be many hundreds and even thousands and more symptoms present in our repertories already. Nevertheless, it is important to not continue adding symptoms of the old remedies like phosphorus, sepia, silica, not repertorize every word. It's not needed. We must look at the proving as if we look at a patient. And as we have been saying just again now in this previous conversation, what is the characteristic thing? What is the typical thing? That is what needs to go into the repertory. Therefore, the recent provings, it's most often one proving coordinator who submits a proving, and then we try to explain to the people, can you limit, downsize, expand your number of symptoms for one proving to 400 to 800 symptoms. This is, I know, a quantitative request, but it is the most easy way to communicate what we expect if people try to understand what is over-repertorizing. And we do get 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 repertorization symptoms from one proving. Well, maybe it is clear what is the expectation. Also for the degree, we suggest to use first degree most of the time, only 10 to 20% second degree, and third degree most often not, only when there is clinical confirmation as well. And I know, and with experience, that every proving coordinator believes their proving is very important and those symptoms are very important, so they want to put many symptoms, they want to put them all in third degree, etc. So we try to dialogue with these people, and of course we will never think the same way, but just have some kind of approach so that provings are not over-repertorized. Why do I emphasize this so much, that we try to not have over-repertorized provings in the repertory? Well, that's a clinical ground. If a remedy from a single proving appears too many times in the repertory, it comes up again and again and again. And in previous versions of Synthesis, we have seen this. And then people prescribe this remedy again and again and again. And then they fail again and again. And they hate the remedy. They hate, in the end, they even hate the author because they say this proving doesn't work. This remedy doesn't work. So it is really important for the proving coordinator not just to add quantity, symptom, 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 but to reflect, saying that this symptom is a key leading to this remedy, that this symptom should be telling you, consider the possibility of this remedy for this patient. This has to be studied. It has to be reflected. So please, we tell everybody, avoid over-repertorizing symptoms. This brings me to the second part is, of course, you know, that even from the old days, other information than provings was entered in the repertories. And we have toxicological information from cuprum, for example, from the intoxication of using cuprum, copper kettle and copper, etc., or working on the copper mines and the copper factories. We know also there is traditional information, arnica, that was used as the falling herb from the Andes, etc. these informations, toxicological and traditional, find a place in the repertory, because they also found a place, at these two examples by chance, they found a place into the Materia Medica of Hahnemann himself. So toxicological information and traditional information, folk medicine, yes, it does find a place into the repertory. A little different with substance information, like saying the plant looks like this, has this virtue, the animal is this behavior, so we just take the behavior of the substance and put it in the rubric. This is many times correct, but sometimes not correct, and even opposite. Like for the well-known example is pulsatilla, which is growing on sunny sandy pastures. It's quoted in Clark, and as you know, if there is one characteristic, keynote characteristic from pulsatilla, is worse from warm places, but the substance, the plant itself, likes to be in a sunny place. So we must be careful, and I try to avoid as much as possible information that is solely based on substance information. Then some of the remedies we use, like juglans regia, are also used in other therapies. In order to be precise, which is one of the other characteristics of, say, my nature in our project, we differentiate. For example, the Bachflower walnut, which is Lugrans regia, will find another abbreviation. So you can differentiate walnut homeopathically and walnut as used in Bachflower therapy. But we do include it, yes. This is about the provings. Then the next chapter is what shall we do with clinical information? And there is an opposition since a long time already. We know Allen's encyclopedia, A1, has containing the provings of the time. Herring collected all the journals, all the cases, etc., created an encyclopedia of guiding symptoms. So it's provings, solely clinical cases. And even in the repertory projects, for example, Clark made a clinical repertory, which was just clinical experience, all clinical rubrics, clinical repertory of John Clark. And some Germans, for example, they say, no, give us a repertory where we only find primary sources proving. We only want this. So provings, clinical information. What shall we do? Well, I think, again, we must take best of both worlds and not limit repertories to provings, but clinical information must be there. And the two giants in repertory development, Kent and Bönninghausen, in both their degree system, you will find there is use this degree if present in a proving, if clinical information, confirmation. So they look at the both angles of what is happening in the homeopathic community. And then, of course, we come to the important question, but which clinical information shall we add? What are the criteria? Well, I will not go into this. It's another hot topic. We can spend a lot of time, but I will tell you what we are doing. We are adding clinical information, but we use a precise referencing. This means if there is an addition from Toxicophis pugnax, a proving from Faruk Master, it is noted with MTF2, the number 2 in the end, referring to the precise document. But if there is a clinical confirmation from Faruk Master, it has a 0 in the end. This is the same for all the authors. GK0 is Goekens clinical confirmation. And like this, we, how shall I say, clarify to those who use synthesis that you are using clinical confirmation of this author for the moment. The ideal solution, of course, and we're working towards this, would be that cases are linked, the symptoms of cases are linked to symptoms of the repertory. So again, as we do for the link between repertory and materia medica, you can go from the repertory to the case and decide on the value and the relevance of this addition in the repertory. Then pathological rubrics. I must say, in our project, we have a history of not paying much attention to pathological rubrics. Pathological rubrics, just as multiple sclerosis, etc. You know what I mean? And this is because I personally believe that the homeopathic value of a symptom is mostly when it is strong and striking. And what is the mental picture, etc. And this is resonated throughout the homeopathic literature. I just give you one quote of Ernest Case. So pathological rubrics almost come at the end in a homeopathic case. You cannot really start a case of multiple sclerosis by saying it will be this remedy. You take the case and you try and find the mental picture, the striking symptoms, etc. Nevertheless, the request has been repetitive. Other people, especially such as Robin Murphy, have been emphasizing pathological rubrics very much. And so I must say, in Adonis, we have added a lot of pathological rubrics now this time as well. Not so much because my idea has been changed on the importance and the use of pathological rubrics, but because maybe there is a use, there is some level of inspiration. Kimmel-Steen-Wilson syndrome, very seldom syndrome. Well, if you see a few remedies that some people used in this case, you can go and read them and read the homeopathic symptoms and maybe be inspired to make a homeopathic prescription, not just a quick one. I see this remedy in this pathological rubric, that's what I prescribe. No. Then another chapter is a very delicate work, is whether to create or not a new rubric. And again, we can, of course, say, oh, we like as many new rubrics and rubrics as possible. That is not the angle we are taking. We are taking the opposite angle. We want to stay with as little rubrics as possible. Be aware that even from Kent's time, the language of the repertory was a standardized language. It means certain words were used, but certain words were never used. It's standardized to allow finding the information in one spot. And just as a reminder, I will give you this example, abandoned, see forsaken. It's the first symptom in Kent's repertory. And this means that abandoned is a referring rubric. There are no remedies and there are no subrubrics there. It tells you, go look somewhere else at forsaken. So see forsaken is the referral and forsaken is the regular rubric where you will find all the remedies, also when the patient is telling you, I feel abandoned. So abandoned is a synonym to forsaken. And in the little screenshot below, you see another example where you see that abrupt is the regular rubric and then rough and brusque are considered synonyms. You will not find any remedies there. If the patient gives you a rough impression, you will go and look at abrupt to find the remedies that apply. Now I will give you two examples. The first one is, let me first explain you with this example what I mean by standardized language. So in the modality talking aggravates is just in the repertory with one way that it is expressed, like talking. You will not find speaking, lecturing, saying, telling, and so on. No. When the patient has been saying this, proving clinical case, etc., we convert it and we standardize it in repertory language to the word talking. This means we may merge rubrics, and we did merge a lot of rubrics. And we may say, no, we don't want this new rubric because we use talking. Okay? So we end up with less symptoms and maybe less remedies, because instead of having some remedies that talking aggravate and then some others that lecturing aggravate, we only have remedies at talking aggravates. But these rubrics will be more pertinent, will be more easy to find them. So we don't duplicate these synonyms. We keep them as referring rubric pointing out to a regular rubric. But of course, insight changes. And maybe someone says, I see the rubric emotion subdued, which is leading to suppressed, emotion suppressed. But I would like to add remedies to emotion subdued. So instead of having this as a synonym to emotion suppressed, I want to make a regular rubric out of emotions subdued. Okay, what we typically do is we use the dictionary. And we use Merriam-Webster, which is the follow-up of Webster's dictionary as used by Kent in the time. And there we read at the word subdue, the verb, that it means having control by an exertion of will. It was the example, subdued my foolish fears. So when we go back to the previous slide, emotions subdued and emotions suppressed, the difference is too little. So we refuse to split this rubric with a synonym into two separate rubrics. And we say, no, we stay with only one rubric. And the other one is just a synonym. We stay with one place. A different example is when looking at vulnerable. Vulnerable in Synthesis 2009 has three referrals. The first one is to physical vulnerability, the second one to mental vulnerability, and then sensitive, you could say, vulnerability on the level of the senses. So it seems like a perfect, how shall I say, explanation guide where you can choose either of the referrals, which brings you to the regular rubric, if your patient is speaking more on a physical or a mental level. But the word vulnerable got like its own meaning, its own place in the conversation, in the stories of patients. I'm vulnerable, I feel vulnerable. And so in this case, we decided to undo the synonyms. And we created three rubrics. The three rubrics, we separated them from vulnerable, and we created a rubric, sensation of vulnerability, where you will see here all new remedies, still with the cross-reference to the physical and mental, etc., vulnerability, but the word being vulnerable has become a rubric. Even emotional vulnerability sub-rubric, it has become a rubric in Adonis because of the language and the importance that the symptom seems to take. So it's not a one-way direction. It may be that we say no, but maybe we say yes, just to stay as close as possible to today's language. Then I need to speak a little bit about families. Repertories offer families, don't you agree? But in the homeopathic community, we are considering families. I've just mentioned a few names, Holten, Shankaran, Michal, people who speak about families. And even in the repertories, there is the QREP by Jeremy Sher, which is offering families for certain money, ambition, etc. So not only remedies families. And there is also the thematic repertory by Luke Norland, Misha's son, which is bringing a lot of families into repertory format. So we have decided for Synthesis Adonis to add families as remedies to the rubrics. So you will see, for example, aves, birds, in a rubric. This has the advantage that there is only one rubric, still one rubric. I will give an example where you will find remedies, but also families as a remedy. And I think this is a nice solution because it underlines the possibility that we can think of a family in the case of this symptom as a possibility, not as a kind of a priori eliminating element. Like desire to kill. Here is the new rubric, desire to kill. You see animals and predators. And these are families. They are recognized by the star. You see, after the remedy, there is a star. And you see the arsenicum as a star in here. And before you see arsenicum as a remedy. Okay. So they're just in the same rubric. Okay.
Frederik?
Yes.
We could also find like silver series.
Yes, okay. Another example here is jealousy, okay? And you see Lachesis and Hyoseamus are there since ever, Nux Homica. Ophidia as a family has been added. So you can think of the remedy lachesis for a case, but you can also think of the family snakes for a case that is very jealous. Okay, this is the whole idea. And now if we repertorize, I will show you here, then you see just these two symbols as a matter of example, jealousy and desire to kill. You will see the known Hyoscyamus and lachesis appearing first, but the animals and the snakes coming up in one and the same repertorization. Okay, so this is the whole idea, to make it very practical and to offer also families as a possibility.
Frederik?
Yes?
You use the word families, which refers to plants and animals, but what about the minerals and the elements?
Families is used in the homeopathic definition, not in the taxonomic definition. So family for us is any group of remedies according to any homeopath.
Okay.
Okay, because families in the taxonomic is only one level in the 12 or 15 different levels. So families is like Ophidia is snakes, and you have then a homeopathic family of certain snakes. So it is any group of remedies. Then the next chapter I would like to explain is an important one, is about copying remedies to superrubrics. Let's go to the beginning. How did Ken do it? When there was an information from a patient from approving, he added that remedy to the most specific rubric. Even it was quite precise, like pain in the temples, better when lying with the head high. The remedy just got there, that's it. Only if a certain rubric, in a certain rubric, a remedy was present in 3 subrubrics, he would say it goes to the subrubric. So some remedy had fear on 3 levels, 3 instances of fear, it becomes a fearful remedy. This is the whole idea that Kent did apply more or less. We've stayed with the same idea. But then in the, I believe it was in the 90s, the Bönninghausen approach got a lot more of attention with the famous idea of generalization, which was applauded and by many people say we must generalize, Bönninghausen generalized, let's all repertorize. And it was a little bit also like put all the remedies in all the rubrics, in all the superrubrics to what they belong. If there is this remedy here in this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 level symptom, let it put in the pain temples, in head pain lying aggravate, let it put in a head pain lying, in all the different combinations. This was called a generalization, and Bönninghausen was the legitimation of this approach, copying remedies to all related superrubrics. What I would like to say is, according to me, this is one of the major mistakes in the development of the repertory. Because according to me, and I've lectured about this as well before, to give you a short summary, this is opposite to what Bönninghausen meant by generalization. What Bönninghausen meant was the genius symptom. And the genius symptoms are often more generalized rubrics, like noon. It happens at noon, or stomach complaints at noon, more generalized. Symptoms by Kent are very detailed. Symptoms by Bönninghausen are more general. But he did not obtain them by the generalization, such as described by copying remedies or superrubrics. No. How did he obtain the genius symptoms? By reading through the information on a remedy and seeing, oh, open air amel comes again and again and again. So I'm going to make a general out of open air amel. And in my repertory, open air amel with pulsatilla, that is the genius symptom for pulsatilla. So he was almost like summarizing a lot of information into one, instead of multiplicating one information into many. And to prove you, the very easy way to prove you that this is exactly what Bönninghausen did, please be aware that he wrote 2 repertories. the systematic alphabetical repertory, which was released in several steps and which counted 617 pages. And then 11 years later, the famous therapeutic pocketbook. In that pocketbook, Bönninghausen has put the genius symptoms of the remedies. So they can be used, desire open air amel, warm applications agrafe, etc. And you find the remedy that corresponds to the core idea. He did not generalize, because if he would have generalized during 11 years, that the way some people say that Bönninghausen was generalizing, instead of 617 pages, he would have had 6,000 pages. No, he has about half of them. The therapeutic pocketbook is half of them. And so it means his generalization was finding genius symptoms. Okay, so we cannot call upon Bönninghausen to say we must copy remedies to all related superrubrics. Totally mistake. And so what have we done? Nevertheless, there is some truth, some value in copying a remedy to a superrubric. If you have pain in the left eye, maybe it's better to have that remedy also in pain in the eyes, because it's maybe left, maybe right. If you have a pain that is burning, maybe it's better to have that remedy also in the aggravation, let's say eating after burning, eating after, because it's eating after. And the patient, does it matter it's burning or pressing or whatever? So yes, we did copy in Synthesis 2009 remedies to the superrubric, but we did it only once. You see, only one level up, and then we stopped. So we generalized only one level. And I can tell you, this is already adding a few hundreds of thousands of remedies. And even more so, for those who say, listen, I don't care, I want to have all the remedies of eating after, whatever the submodality of the modalities, you can do it, because there is this command in our software, at least /R, which means take remedies of all the subrubrics. Okay, so the flexibility is there. Here is the quote, Aphorismen Hippocrates, book 6, 38, and different other places where Bönninghausen is explaining his way of generalization, which is basically finding the genius of the remedy, not multiplying it hundreds and thousands of times. Nevertheless, one may say, well, but does it really matter? Because the bigger the remedy, the better, isn't it? I don't think so. I don't think so. And let's then first in this table understand what I try to define as a big or a small remedy. We start from medium, 500 to 2000, and then we have small and big, very small, very big, and then the gigantic remedies with more than 10,000 symptoms, and the inconspicuous remedies that are really not yet visible. Okay? And the medium level, 500 to 2000, is highlighted, because I personally believe that, of course, we can prescribe a small remedy. We for sure prescribe a very big remedy, at times a gigantic remedy. But if a remedy is represented with anything between 500 and 2000 symptoms in the repertory, it is well represented. We will find it. There will some symptoms that the patient will tell, we will find them in the repertory and trace them back to that remedy. This is a very good size, 500 to 2000. So if we could only get many remedies, maybe some of the small and the very small remedies up to this size, they will become more visible, more usable. This is my idea. Now let's just here look at the graph of sulfur, the biggest of all remedies in all repertories. And in the blue, you see what has happened to synthesis. This is a time scale, a rough time scale of 5 years, starting in 1995 up to today. And in synthesis, you see synthesis 8 here with 12,000 appearances, synthesis 9.1, 16,000, 17,000 in 2009, and then 18,000 something in Adonis. What you see is that the size of sulfur has come to a certain point, 16,000, then not much anymore. I feel there is no need to expand sulfur much more. The symptoms of sulfur, the relevant symptoms should be there. If anything, we should remove a few and just make sure that the ones that are relevant are there. And some other projects, you'll see if this approach is not taken, in the course of 25 years, we almost doubled the size of sulfur in the polycrests. And I don't think this is desirable, because then we do get to this idea of sulfur is in every usable or interesting rubric, okay? We must have the relevant symptoms of the remedy in the relevant rubrics in the repertory. So all this is to say that much of the reflection in expanding the repertory, much of the balancing act is avoiding the quantity trap. And I have just summarized in one screen the different ways that we have been doing it consistently over 12 years, and I would say increasingly even. Adonis is now the first repertory where this becomes very strongly, even not yet perfect, but we're moving very strongly into this idea of give them the relevant information, and not as much as possible, give them the relevant information. By not over-repertorizing provings, by not adding substance information, by not adding redundant synonym rubrics where the remedies are repeated, by not duplicating symptoms. That is another example. Asthma alternating eczema, you find whatever, 25 remedies. We don't need to repeat the rubric eczema alternating asthma and repeat the remedies. No, we create a referring rubric, say asthma alternating asthma, or asthma alternating eczema, or vice versa. Only one rubric, one place, that's it. No duplication on the location. If there is chest anxiety, we don't need to duplicate that rubric in the chapter mind. It's not needed. It's just increasing quantity, one place, one location. And then especially the copying of the remedies, I can tell you, if we would, and we'll never do it, if we would copy the remedies to all the related sub-rubrics, synthesis would immediately be 50% bigger. 50% is my estimate. We will not do it. What we will do is emphasize again and again and consistently to have the relevant symptoms of the remedies in the correct rubrics. And we have made a jump in these 12 years. Look how slowly we were evolving. And then suddenly from Synthesis 2009, almost 1,000 remedies more are now described in Synthesis Adonis. Okay, so this is the way we go. More relevant information about more remedies, not just quantity on polycrests. At last, I want to thank different people of this group here for contributing and working, collaborating in the creation of synthesis. This is Philippe from Belgium, who has made a lot of clinical additions, appearing for the first time fully integrated into the correct rubrics. Some 11,000 symptoms where you know that Philippe is always emphasizing small remedies. Then we had the big project with Misha, our dear Misha, and we have consistent additions of 19 new provings by him. Many of them are new substances. The same with Vladimir, who is still with us. So thank you, Vladimir, and your friend Jaroslav.
Benes.
Yeah, okay, who has been helping to add information on 20 new provings there. And Peter, who is not with us for the moment, but who's also been contributing with his team, has been working through the cases and the provings and all the material of 25 years and has given us some 1,000 keynote additions of the 13 most important remedies. His work is still ongoing, but his idea, and I totally agree to that, first put the keynotes of these 13 remedies. And we have done this for the remedies that he desired. So these are contributions. I hope I'm not forgetting anyone that are included in Synthesis Adonis from these different people from our team, from our teachers collective. And this leads us to also to new rubrics, just to show you one. The COVID-19 Generals rubric is now new. These are contributions here was from 28 authors worldwide. And we have some, I believe, some 80 or so COVID-related rubrics in Adonis. So I hope that also for this, the repertory will be helpful. Thank you very much. And here is the email. So I am not a bottleneck in case you want to communicate with our team.